Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook, along with producer Alden Iwani. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Our very special guest today is Bill Gracey, who was just inducted into New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame on Saturday. But before we start with Coach Gracey, we do want to mention former Cibola head basketball coach, Las Vegas Robertson, head basketball coach, and Cibola AD, Phil Schreier, passed away recently. Our deepest condolences to his family. And we just wanted to make sure we mentioned that. And Coach Gracey, welcome to the show. And Coach Schreier was a very good friend of yours. And before we go into it, you might want to talk about your personal connection with Coach Schreier, because I'll tell you one thing, he had one with everyone, Coach. He really did.
He was one of the best, no question about it. I first met Phil. I was working as a counselor in Bobby Diver's officiating camp that was being in conjunction with Gary Colson and Dave Bliss. Those coaches always ran team camps. I can't remember which coach it was at the time, but Phil was coaching Las Vegas Robertson. We started talking, and he came over to me and he said, "Hey, listen, I know you're at Cibola High School. If that job ever opens up, I would love to have the opportunity to interview for it." And the job opened up, and Phil became one of the top basketball coaches Cibola's ever had, with Frank Castillo, and sorely missed. He lit up the gymnasium, not a room. He lit up the whole gym when he walked in, and truly one of the great guys I've ever met.
I'll tell you one thing. I'd say this unabashedly. I love the guy. I did. We got to be really good friends, and we shared a lot of things. And anyway, our deepest condolences to the family of Phil Schreier. Coach Gracey, we want to make sure we congratulate you on your induction into the Sports Hall of Fame. Saturday night was quite an event. You're inducted with Herb Stinson, with Emmanuel Manny Smith, Lou Perotti, and also Gene Torres, the golfer. And what an event it was. Coach, tell us a little bit about what you've been being inducted into the New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame meant to you. Your career spanned a lot, and we'll get into it, but talk to us a little bit about what it meant to you.
All right. I certainly didn't get into sports to ever be in the Hall of Fame. I did it just because I really, really enjoyed sports. But I think when you're walking down that Hall of Fame and you see all the photos of the previous inductees, and so many of them I knew, I'd either coached with them, like Coach Craig, Joe Vivian. I got to coach with Joe, the great wrestling coach at Cibola. But you go up and down, Buddy Robertson, who was the director of athletics at APS, and sure enough, up and down that wall, and then all of a sudden you see your photo up there with the greats of this state. It was pretty humbling for sure, Eddie. Pretty humbling.
Tell you what, it was a great speech. I really got a lot out of it, and we're going to talk about. You remember, okay, you were the head coach at Cibola from 1979 to 97, 1 year at La Cueva. Then you go to UNM and help out Susan Craig from 1999 to 2003. You've been an assistant with Gerard Pineda at La Cueva. And you told me the other night, or you said in the speech, that you hit fungos, and we know you're doing much more than that. But talk a little bit about first, and remember, to tell everybody this, Cibola won a baseball championship in 1983. Talk a little bit about what your Cibola years meant to you. You were there a long time. Talk a little bit about what it meant to be. You're the only one, by the way, to win a championship. And there's been great teams at Cibola. All due respect to Ben Schultz, Judge Chavez, Ray Rodriguez, Phil Schreier. But you're the one that won a championship. As far as there's been championships won in cross country and girls basketball, but I think on the boys' side, you're the only one to win a championship in a sport, big three sport.
Oh, I had left Colorado Springs and came back down here and sold insurance for a year. And one of my friends, his name was Jim Spencer. He coached football at West Mesa, and he was on the football staff at Cibola. He just called me one day and said, "Hey, Grace, I don't want to coach baseball. I'm going to talk to Mr. Barefoot. Are you interested in this job?" And I said, "I will do anything to get that job." And basically, I said in the speech the other day, I would have mowed his lawn, washed his cars, begged him for that job. And fortunately for me, I got the chance to be a head coach then. But some of my early remembrance of what we had to do to make it successful is our field was not up to par. We didn't have an outfield fence whatsoever. And so I asked the players, I said, how do you tell it's a home run? And he said, well, they say that if they don't see it bounce, it's a home run. If they do see it bounce and then it disappears, because there's a huge slope behind our our field. And I said, this is crazy. And so to take that field that had nothing but a backstop and 2 dugouts, it was really one of the things I instilled in the kids, that if you want a great field, you're going to help me work on it. And those early years were fun to get people involved with it. One of the things I was really happy about, I don't know how to say it, but I won the state championship after only 4 years of being the head coach there. And it was gosh, how do I want to say this? I wanted to let people know that if they came to Cibola, they were going to get to play on the best field, and my players respected the field, but they respected the game. And to turn that program, it had only been there for 4 years, I think, when I got there, to winning within a 4-year period. That's probably one of the things I was most proud about, is that even Tommy McLemore, who was very hard for me to ever beat at Farmington, he says, I love coming to your yard to play. And just that pride that I tried to instill in our players, not only with the game, but the field, and just what it meant to put the brown and gold uniform on. The early years like that. But as we moved,
you were a graduate of West Mesa, I believe, the athlete over the year in 71 at West Mesa High School. So you had to take, the pride that you had at West Mesa, and still some of it at Cibola, and you did. And by the way, Coach, during that time, Cibola had some fantastic athletes. Cibola's never lacked for talent, right? They've had, and when Volcano Vista and Rio Rancho came around, it lessened, right? Some of that talent went to those schools, but Cibola has never lacked for talent.
No, it's I always loved competing against. At the beginning, it was kind of like we were a West Side school, and the West Side schools were getting beat up by the East Side schools. And then I kind of considered Cibola an in-between as we got going. There was nothing better than beating El Dorado or beating Manzano or beating Del Norte back in those days. They had great coaches and great programs, but I needed to measure. Our measuring stick is how we did against the best teams, and those were at that time. But man, you talk about, I had the opportunity to get reconnected with John Roscoe's, and John, 93, was the 2nd round draft pick of the Florida Marlins, and just a young man who is now a police lieutenant in the force out at Rio Rancho. And after he made it to the show, and first major leaguer that I can remember. And then Mike Vento was another one that came in, and he played for the Yankees. So I had 2 kids I know that made it to the show, but there were so many other, it's not that they were great athletes, but great people. I got to see so many of them the other night, the Chris Orlandos, the Butch DeFlippos, the people that made it fun to go to practice with because they loved baseball and they were comedians. And earlier in my year, I had a lot of guys from New York, and I couldn't even say their name, no less write it in the lineup. It was fun.
That's right. I forgot a lot of the New Yorkers moved into that Rio Rancho area, right, in the late 60s. We've got a quote from somebody that knows you well. I've known and respected Coach Gracey since my high school days in La Cueva, playing against the Cibola teams. I also had the opportunity to play for Coach Gracey during the North-South All-Star Series in 1990. I can honestly say he's been an awesome mentor to me. I really got to know Bill well when I was an assistant at UNM while his son Scott played for the Lobos. When I was named head coach at La Cueva, I jumped at the chance to ask Bill to join the staff. I've learned so much from him, and I continue to do so every day. We get to work together. It's been an honor to be associated with this great man. The best part of our relationship is that over the years, his family and ours have become the closest of friends, and that's from La Cueva head coach Gerard Pineda.
And not to leave out, his son was just drafted by the Kansas City Royals. Gerard is a special human being in the Gracey family, because he really did help my son become a better baseball player at the University of New Mexico. But I've coached with a lot of people, and I've coached against a lot of people. And between the white lines, I learn more about baseball every time I go to La Cueva practice because of his knowledge. I've got a lot of knowledge, but this guy, I'm telling you what, he makes me wake up every day when he does something I hadn't heard about, or he's just an innovative coach that loves the game, and it is a great family. And
kind of jolts you though, Coach, right? It keeps those the baseball knowledge and what the younger coaches know, and Coach Pineda has been around for a while, but like you mentioned, the program at La Cueva is one that's definitely admired by a lot of coaches around the state for sure, and you're part of the staff.
When I used to coach club ball, the younger kids, like the 10, 11, 12-year-olds, shortstop had the best arm all the time. And so I kind of went away from a ball hit to left field, and the shortstop, after it goes through, he goes to third base. The third baseman comes out and he's the cutoff man. And, it kind of didn't make sense to do that because the shortstop had the best arm. Let's just have the left fielder throw the shortstop and the shortstop throw it to home. And we started doing that this last year at La Cueva at a more advanced level. I didn't do that earlier because it's kind of hard for the kids to understand where all to go. But he's not afraid to be innovative. He's not afraid to challenge the norms in the game. And when Gerard coaches, you listen as a coach and as a player, and you're going to learn. You're going to get better. The other thing that he did is I married great, and he married great. He is married to his biggest cheerleader. The strongest woman I've ever met in my life is Bridget Pineda. Raised 4 kids. She's a tremendous teacher. And she keeps not only Gerard in shape, she keeps the whole La Cueva baseball community in shape, let me tell you. When Bridget talks, we listen.
Coach, that's a great, I think, your beautiful wife accompanying you. Carolyn, is that?
Christine.
Christine, used to be a former volleyball player at Central Michigan. Behind us all, there's a strong, great woman, right? I mean, my wife, I can honestly, she's a driver as well, keeps everything together. Let's talk a little bit about after Cibola. You won a championship in 1983. You go to UNM 1999 to 2003 to be an assistant to Susan Craig, who's also in the Hall of Fame. Talk to us a little bit about your UNM years.
Well, I had the connection that I used to work with the Lobo outfielders during the fall seasons and stuff in there. And so Susan and I got to know each other. In fact, when I coached the Albuquerque Jokers with Ken Johnson, Susan was our second baseman and a tremendous player. She is probably the most, what's the word I want to use? Let me see if I can back up. She runs a practice as well as anybody can run a practice. Her practice organization was second to none. And still, when I see Gerard do something, I say, hey, let's try this because Susan used to do it. I have so much respect for her knowledge and her background of how to make people better, not just players, but people better. It was just a really good chance for me to go to Division I. And she opened up her arms to that, and I actually ran the offense and coached third base. I'll tell you, the people that were a little confused with my mom and dad because they love baseball, and they say, "You're going to go do what?" And I said, "I'm going to go coach softball at the University of Mexico." And I'll tell you, Ed, my mom and dad didn't miss very many Cibola games, and boy, did they get hooked on women's fast pitch. And they started traveling with us when we go on the road at times if they could get there in a car or so forth. But the Lobo softball, it was just fun, and to coach with Susan and Tracy Buchanan and Ronnie Mims, Ron Mims to this day, he's probably 72 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood. He is still the best fast pitch hitting instructor in the Southwest, and he gives lessons all week long at America's Pastime Sports.
Tell you what, it's a different game, right? The women's fast pitch and Susan Craig, a Hall of Famer, and when I've covered women's softball, it's a whole different game, and it's really an enjoyable game for sure, Coach. Coach, we're going to take a break. When we come back in our second segment, we'll talk about your NCAA College Division I basketball officiating career after these messages on the Sports Desk. Welcome back to the Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Our very special guest today, New Mexico 2021 Sports Hall of Fame inductee, Coach Bill Gracey. And Coach, once again, man, it's great to have you on. It really is.
My honor. It's nice to be wanted sometimes. You know what I mean? The older you get.
Oh, Coach, I'll tell you what, it's been a heck of a week, right? I mean, we were just talking about how you prepared for your Hall of Fame speech, and it was an amazing one. You know, we talked about your baseball and your softball career as well as a coach, and you're also athlete of the year in at West Mason '71. But we want to. There's some great pictures there. I really got touched in the song that they played in your video. That we're talking baseball. That had me going, man. That did. But you know, you also officiated Division I college basketball for 31 years, and you called 14 NCAA tournament games, man. Now, I want, if you wouldn't mind, Coach, telling everybody how you got started. They saw you calling a game, and the parochial league, a nun came up to you and said, "Would you mind going over that story again, Coach?"
Oh yeah, I was a PE major, and one of the classes we had to take was sports officiating. So to get an A, you had to go out and officiate a couple intramural games. So I picked basketball. And after the second game this one night at Carlisle Gym, I was walking out of the place, and a nun stopped me and said, "Young man," I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Would you be interested in refereeing the parochial league?" I said, "What is that? I don't know what you're talking about." She goes, "Well, it's 5th and 6th grade girls. It's 2 games a night, $3 a game." I said, "Ma'am, I will be there." I mean, $6 when I was in college was a full tank of gas. And, you know, I kind of enjoyed the workout. I really never had played basketball. Of course, I knew what traveling was, and you knock somebody down as a foul and all that. But it got into me a little bit there, because the rest of that year, I just did some junior high girls parochial league games. And then the following year, and that was my senior year at UNM, I got into the association and did a bunch of junior high APS games and a few JV games. And then I graduated and went off to my first teaching job in Colorado Springs. And my brother was a basketball referee, football coach, and baseball there. And his association was called IABO, International Association of Basketball Officials. And they really got into doing things right. So from not doing anything right and just running up down the court to go into an association, those guys really made me a much better official. And then came back to Albuquerque and got back into the New Mexico Activities Association. And a great man, and he's in the Hall of Fame too. His name is Mel Otero. Mel was a great basketball referee, and he was also the assigner. He was the one that would assign you whether you're doing Sandia El Dorado game, West Mesa, Belen game, whatever. And he took me under his wing. And then sure enough, Irv Brown came knocking, and he was the supervisor of officials in the Western Athletic Conference. It wasn't a form, "Hey, would you like to be considered," or anything else. It just showed up in the mail, and it was a contract to go to the University of Texas, El Paso, otherwise known as UTEP, to do my first Division I college basketball game, which pretty much scared me to death. I'd gone from high school to D1, and now I'm going to go down to Coach Haskins at UTEP. So that's pretty much how my career got kickstarted.
You said in your speech the other night that Coach Haskins was fair to you. You know, you were a little worried about that, and his nickname was the Bear, and you know, he had a reputation and an outstanding coach. Him and Norm Ellenberger used to have some battles here at the pit, and I miss those days when we played UTEP. Right, it was a great rivalry, and the pit would be electric when we played UTEP. Right. So, but you said Coach Haskins for your first game didn't lean. You know, was pretty fair with you. You thought.
Well, Irv Brown would send a lot of the new referees down to Haskins right away, because Haskins, he hated homers. He didn't want anybody feeling that the home team was getting a chance. So earlier in my career, I learned that being a roader was much better than being a homer, because Haskins didn't need help at home from a referee. He just wanted a fair shot on the road. And so if that kind of makes sense, Irv would send you down there and let Bear chew you up a little bit, and then Bear would let him know. He'd say, "I think this guy's got a chance." But Haskins, you know, he won the national championship in 1966.
Yes, he did.
Talking about Norm Ellenberger, I was at the pit. I don't know if I was in junior high or high school, but that was a game where Lobos were winning pretty big, and so Don Haskins was at this end. He walks down and sits next to Ellenberger on the bench. And Ellenberger, the story goes, "What are you doing down here?" And he says, "Well, you don't. It must look pretty good from down here because it doesn't look so good from down there where I was." So Norm got up and went down and sat on where Bear was. So they switched teams.
That is hilarious.
And everything was going pretty good till Norm started trying to sub some of his players in, and that's where Haskins went back. And
yeah, that's they had a long relationship. You know, we've got another quote from you, somebody that knows you from the officiating part. Billy Gracey will always be remembered as one of the good guys in officiating, great official, an even better friend. Billy was a great communicator, if not the best communicator, excellent play caller, well respected by coaches, administration, and peers. And that's from Wilson Holland, who's one of the best referees for sure in the Southwest. He was kind enough to give me that quote about you.
Well, he probably did that because I'm in charge of assigning him basketball games right now. So. No, Wilson's, he's in the Hall of Fame up at Highlands, and great football player from Alamogordo.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
And I think he's been the head football coach at Rio Rancho. I know his football career was good, but he is an outstanding young official. And
keeps himself in tremendous shape for sure. You know, Coach, all the tournament games that you called, you called 14 NCAA tournament games. Yeah. Anyone that stands out more than the other. I mean, they're all great assignments. Everybody wants those assignments, right? Absolutely. Was there one game that stood out? You were on you call Bobby Knight's games, right? Is there anything that stands out more than others about those assignments that you had? They're all great, right? They're all great. You want them. You don't forget. Some days, probably something triggers your memory about a call. Like, I remember that, right? Is there anything that stands out more than the other?
Well, of course, the very first one I got my first assignment, and I had Stanford against Alabama. You had Mike Montgomery and you had Wimp Sanderson, and you're in a huge arena, and it's not KGGM or KOB Sports.
Right.
It's CBS.
Mm-hmm.
So that game really stood out. I can honestly tell you, I don't remember who won that game. I can tell you it was kind of like doing the speech the other night. You're excited, you're nervous, you get off the plane, all of a sudden you got a bodyguard with you the entire time. But then it's just like a snap of the finger. I was on the plane going back to Albuquerque. The game went by so fast. But as far as games I remember, the 2003 winner goes to the Final Four between Oklahoma and Syracuse, and Carmelo Anthony was a freshman. I can't referee any better in that game. And what I mean by that is when the players are so good, you just get to stay out of their way a little bit. And the coaches are really, the best coaches there. So you just, as an official, you just go in and get the ones that have to be gotten. It's not that you don't do that little nitpicking stuff. You let those players decide the game. And the environment would be the other thing, Eddie. I mean, I had Georgetown, Texas Tech at the Georgia Dome. There's 39,000 people at that game. And those are the type of things I really remember. And you had John Thompson. And probably the best play I ever saw in my life was in that game. Darwin Ham, who I believe I know you like the Lakers. I believe just was named the head coach. And I believe the name was Othello Harrington. He was the center.
Mm-hmm. Othello Harrington, yes.
You go back and you watch the replays of that game, you can YouTube it, but Ham jumps over the top of him. His thigh is above his head, and he dunks this ball. And it's one of those where the whistle just fell out of my mouth, and I wanted to applaud. You're just in awe.
Right.
And that's also the game that, speaking of another freshman, that was Iverson's only year at Georgetown. So those are the things that I really remember. The great player like an Iverson or Andrew Bogut from Utah. It was just special times. But as a referee, when you get to those games, you're excited and nervous. And then when they're over, you go, it's kind of easier to referee this game because the play's so good. The coaches are so good. You're always going to run into a knucklehead. That's just their breed. But for the most part, the NCAA tournament is a validation that you're probably a pretty good referee. and somebody else is rewarding you with that game. You're not telling anybody that you're a good referee. Somebody else is saying, hey, we need your skills. And so pretty exciting.
Nice level you can achieve. Coach Gracey, we're going to have to wrap this up, but I'll tell you one again, 2021 New Mexico Sports Hall of Fame inductee. We want to congratulate you on that. And thank you again for joining us today on the Sports Desk.
Well, I can't thank you enough, and I appreciate everything you do. And yeah, I will always remember August 20th for sure. It was a great night in my life and my family's life. So thank you.
An outstanding speech, Coach. It really was. I got a lot out of it. My ear was right there, man. You did a great job.
Well, I appreciate it, really. I'm so honored and humbled for the award, and to be on an interview with you is just fantastic.
Thanks, Coach. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.